Hi, welcome back. Good to see ya. This is slightly different this time around, but still, I have sat here and I have watched every single new anime of the fall 2024 anime season that was released as of this recording. There's still one last show that's coming out on like the 19th, but I don't feel the need to try and hold back the whole video for that, so I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll do that as a short or something. Who am I kidding? No, I won't. Anyways, mostly the same deal as per usual, except this time, instead of me attempting to watch 3 episodes of every show and then releasing this video when it's no longer relevant for the sake of having a complete picture, we are instead going off of 1 episode this time and 1 episode only. Every show we talk about today is only going to have 1 shot to get it right, and if the ones that I toss magically get better later, I am sure I will be told about it. So we're going to be judging these shows into 3 categories: shows that I am keeping, shows that I am tossing, and shows that I honestly still want to do the full, complete, like 3 episode test to see how it goes before potentially dumping it. It actually gives a little bit more purpose to the whole category this time around. And I like that, so that's what we're going to do. Hopefully, this will let us go over them all to learn what is good, what is frosty, and what I will actually want to spend my time watching this season. So, ladies, gentlemen, and others, welcome to Glass Reflection. Let's jam. 365 Days to the Wedding. A romantic comedy where the workplace that our 2 main characters spend their days has decided to open up a brand new branch in Alaska. But doing so requires one of their employees to relocate there and manage the area. Nobody really wants to do it, but management says that they would prefer to have a non-married and otherwise unattached employee for the position. So since both of our characters want to avoid being forced to move to Alaska, their plan is, well, hey, if we just get married, then neither of us will be single anymore, and then we'll be safe, right? It's a really stupid plan. Not because it's not going to work. It will absolutely work, but because, like, the meta concept of a romance between 2 people being forced together in this way would just normally have no shot of actually working out in reality. Like, the guy here had the right plan. As soon as he found out that he might be going to Alaska, he was just gonna quit. You know, just leave the company and find a job somewhere else until the girl essentially proposes to him, which, I mean, isn't quitting what should be happening here? I don't claim to know much about Japanese work culture, all right? But when they give an example about how bad relocating to Alaska will be, they say, oh yeah, we sent this guy to the branch in Tahiti like 10 years ago and he's still begging to come home. Like, dude, quit. Maybe living here in North America makes me privileged that way, but the idea that the only option they have is to get married and loophole their way out of this situation where, comically, they're probably not in any danger of getting sent anyways, because, you know, wouldn't that be funny? 365 days pass, these 2 get married to avoid being sent to this branch, and then it turns out that that branch isn't opening anymore. For whatever reason. That would be hilarious, wouldn't it? Either way, I'm keeping this one for now. A terrified teacher at Ghoul school. I don't really know if Ghoul is accurate here. Like, when I hear Ghoul in my head, I just hear Integra Helsing talking about taking out the trash. Instead, this series is a yokai school. You know, spirits and deities and that sort of thing from Japanese folklore. You know, maybe someone on the Western side thought that Ghoul was a good pick for that, but to my understanding, Western fans know about Tokyo Ghoul, or at least that series is popular enough that this misunderstanding shouldn't happen. Either way, we have a human who gets a new job as a teacher for a school that consists entirely of a variety of spirits. He's in charge of teaching them and dealing with all of the misadventures therein. It's cute, and if you want to learn more about yokai, then perhaps you will find it useful or interesting. Personally, though, I'm okay. I'm gonna pass on this one. Acro Trip. Oh, how I dream for a magical girl series that is actually a magical girl series and not just riffing on the genre. You know, like this one. Acro Trip is about a girl who becomes a super fan of her area's local magical girl, but while she does this, she actively criticizes said magical girl's villain out loud to herself, to the point where said villain hears her critique and thinks, no, you're right, I'm actually trash at my job. You would be the perfect person to help me fix that. So really, this just feels like another take on, like, gushing over magical girls, but without the protagonist who ends up in a dominatrix role over the magical girls of the show. Which is to say, it's not a true magical girl show because our protagonist isn't one. I mean, I'm going to keep it because of my devotion to the genre, not under duress or anything, though I'm not necessarily happy about the situation either. At least the show feels fun, even if I have a problem with the premise. Blue Box. After this first episode, I still have no idea why this show is called Blue Box. I mean, I didn't see a TARDIS anywhere. This is false advertising. Anyways, this is a romantic sports high school anime with better than average animation quality. Our main male lead is part of the badminton club, and he has a massive crush on the ace of the school's basketball team. He thinks that she's super dedicated about getting better at basketball and admires her heavily for that. We spend some time with him faffing about, not really knowing how to interact with her, until he stumbles into a situation where he can give her life advice that she takes to heart, and she respects him a ton in return. Then it turns out that both of their parents were like best buds when they went to high school, and since the girl's parents magically need to go somewhere, I don't know, for work, somewhere that's convenient for the plot, the girl is now staying with her mom's best friend so that she can complete high school. And it just so happens that said best friend is our male character's mom. So they're living in the same house now. How convenient. I mean, I don't have a problem with Shonen Jump adaptations on the whole. I just don't like adaptations that rely so much on convenience. So really, the series is quite cute. I'm enjoying it heavily, even if I do have to roll my eyes at the layers of coincidence and convenience that this plot has. Oh yeah, their parents are best buds and have been for decades, but our main character doesn't learn this until it's convenient for the plot. I'm sorry, as a kid, I knew all of the best friends of the parents that I lived under the same roof with. You just learn that natively. How did he not? So for the moment, I think I'm actually just going to put this one on hold. We'll see, though. We'll see. Dun da dun. Yeah, you should watch it. I mean, I'll put a content warning in front of that because, the show has some rather violently lewd scenarios under a comedic lens that, won't be for everyone. But also, it's one of the better spiritual successors to Fooly Cooly since Fooly Cooly. I'm not counting the Fooly Cooly sequels. This is better than those. I'll understand if you don't, but I'm keeping this one. Demon Lord 2099. Alright, this is pretty much an instant keep. Traditional hero slays the Demon Lord kind of story, and the Demon Lord comes back, except here, 420 years into his 500-year slumber, the fantasy world of his existence gets slammed into a alternate Earth that's more like our modern Earth, and everything gets thrown out of whack. And so, when he wakes up, we, in essence, have a Demon Lord story, but instead of him waking up in modern day, he wakes up in a kind of Blade Runner-inspired cyberpunk future. Oh, I'm sorry, not cyberpunk. Shadowrun. So the Demon Lord only has one dedicated follower remaining, several who are MIA, and at least one who has full force betrayed him in order to try and rule the world himself and has spent the last 500 years becoming even more powerful than our protagonist, enough to send him packing. So now our Demon Lord has to live in a tiny-ass apartment with his thrall and potentially gain his revenge against his former comrade, while also coming to terms with, how he died the first time around at the hands of mortals and what that means for his existence. As I said, instant keep. Goodbye, Dragon Life. I'm actually kind of glad I have yet to reach the point where I start up a show like this and respond with something along the lines of, another bog standard isekai with a unique twist, because really I think that I would just hate life because of how often that scenario would actually occur. Okay, so the reincarnation twist here is that our protagonist was an ancient dragon from another fantasy world in his past life. He got slain by humans after spending years alone in a cave. Not sure why he was alone or why the humans hunted him, but maybe that'll be a plot point for later. Or not. So now he exists as a human and he lives in a quaint village with his family. After coming of age, he heads out to investigate a nearby forest that used to be home to a clan of lizardmen, and he runs into two things. A giant earth elemental who is destroying said forest, and presumably was the one who killed all of the lizardmen that he found, but also a busty Lamia who is searching for a husband. They take out the elemental, he's unimportant, but the Lamia specifically wants to find a husband with strong poison endurance because of the natural venom that Lamia have. And it just so happens that they part ways at the end of the episode. Okay. I mean, that's not gonna last. She's gonna come back, but I still found it funny that they did that. just, part ways and not force the relationship between the characters immediately. That was nice. I'm going to keep this one because I do have a soft spot for both, fantasy and also these sickly sweet reincarnation stories. Will I finish the whole show? Who knows, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Haigakura. This series has a level of non-intuitive world building that's just really hard to describe. There's like a world of spirits and monsters, people who forge contracts with said spirits by singing, and we have a protagonist who can't sing, so he forges contracts by heavy metal screaming? More confusing though is that I read the synopsis of the show after the fact, and the synopsis feels like it's for an entirely different show. So this is like the first time that me only looking at episode 1 is probably gonna, bite me in the ass, since I think the narrative may have decided to start further down in continuity before then, backtracking, but I can still say that even with that, there's a lot here that just doesn't make sense. But if you want some kind of like mystical adventure with an assortment of creatures with just a touch of yaoi, you might enjoy this. But I'm out. How I attended an all-guys mixer. The answer to the title's question is that the 3 girls who attended the mixer all work at a cross-dressing bar and decided to show up to the mixer in guy mode. So it only looks like an all-guys mixer, but it's not actually. This is a series that is trying to have those same vibes and feelings as a yaoi romance series, despite featuring characters who are all technically straight. So I'm gonna put a hold on this one for the novelty, but honestly I don't know if I'll end up keeping it just because of how hard the show is trying to hide what our 3 cross-dressing women look like when not at work. And so the explanations on why we only ever meet them in guy mode will probably become more and more obtuse. But we'll have to see. I'll become a villainess who goes down in history. For about half a second, I actually thought that this series was going to go down a far more interesting route. But I live to be disappointed, apparently. Our villainous character shows the traditional path of once being obsessed with an otome game before dying and finding herself reincarnated into said game in the role of that game's villainess. The main difference here is that unlike a lot of other stories where our main character desperately attempts to avoid their in-game fate of either death or banishment, this villainess sees herself to become the greatest villainess of all time who will also not be killed or banished. She still actually wants to be a villainess, you see. She doesn't want to change everything and become like the heroine. At least that's what she says. Constantly, she keeps doing things while saying to herself, "Aha, see? Only a true villainess would do something so delightfully evil." And then, she doesn't actually act all villainous at all, and everything she does is just something that's really intelligent, something that, like, a queen would do. There's no evil or malice to her actions that would constitute the title of villainess, but it's like she's in her own little world with her actions. It's, I'd say it's cute if it wasn't so depressing. I personally would have loved to see her actually legitimately be a villainess, though I do understand that that's a lot harder to do. It's very hard to make a protagonist be like a true villain, as you run the risk of the audience hating them because of their actions. But to me, that would have been a great thing to like distance this series from its genre competitors. As it stands, it does little to be different, which, I mean, if you like the villainous stories and you want more of them, here you go. I think I'm gonna hold on to it just for a few more episodes because there were a couple of scenes of world building there where it made me curious as to where the plot intends to go with them, but largely I do see myself dropping the series before, 3 months are up. That's where I'm at. Kinokoinu Mushroom Pup. This is different. Our protagonist is a writer, and he's in the lowest depths of depression after his dog and best friend of 17 years passed away. He's been mostly despondent in that he kind of has like no emotions at all, which is affecting his life and his work. He can't write anymore, so he just kind of exists. That is, until in his backyard, a mushroom starts growing. A pink mushroom, which eventually sprouts into our show's namesake Mushroom Pup. The Mushroom Pup doesn't eat food, but like mushrooms, he likes only water. He has some kind of complex intelligence, enough so that he actually starts to act like an emotional support dog for our protagonist, but not like a normal support dog, more like if Jake from Adventure Time just couldn't talk. Overall, I think I'm gonna pass on this one because I'm not really down to watch somebody else get over their own bouts of depression with the help of a zombie-like mushroom dog that shoots out spores at random intervals. If you like the relationship between humans and pets, feel free to check it out. But I'm out. Let this grieving soul retire. Oh my god, a proper fantasy and not an isekai. Let's go! I mean, it still holds most of the hallmarks of the genre. It's like fantasy and isekai are so intrinsically linked now that it's near impossible to separate them, but hey, our protagonist here is not from another world or a reincarnation, so I will take what I can get. What he is, though, is a normal, everyday human that happened to become friends with 5 other people who will eventually form the strongest and most well-known party of adventurers throughout the land. Our protagonist himself is worthless in combat and pretty much worthless in almost anything else useful, but because he had the best friends in the world, they did not care about that and made him their leader anyway. Then they all died. They're all gone now. So our protagonist must now continue living with the reputation given to him by his overpowered friends. He doesn't really want this, and as the title of the show states, he just wants to retire. But Adventurers Guild politics won't let him do that, so it looks like he's stuck building a new party, or at least convincing some young upstarts to do a bunch of dirty work for him. I am quite intrigued. I'm not sure where it's going yet. Not sure I'll even enjoy where it leads, but for now we're gonna keep it. Loner life in another world. A transported to another world isekai where our protagonist attempts to flee from the summoning circle that dragged him and his classmates into this fantasy world. But because he ran and was the actual last to be summoned, he gets left with all of the seemingly useless abilities that nobody wanted because it was just like a list and first come, first serve or something. It sounds really stupid. Oh, but I'm sure that as usual, there will be some overpowered ability that looks useless to everyone else and no one will pick it, but oh, look at that, he has max luck now. I'm sure that won't help him at all. The problem with living a loner life is that you either commit to that narratively and heavily rely on your not really all that interesting protagonist to drive your story, or then you disregard your show's title to force the protagonist into other relationships with either his classmates or the fantasy folk that he ends up meeting so that their interactions can be the foundation of the series. Either way, however the show decides to do that, I'm no longer interested. I'm out, passing on this one. Magilumiere Magical Girls Incorporated. Magical Girls. Honest to goodness magical girls. I really don't give a damn that there's a heavy emphasis on technology that complements their magical powers, or that in this world, being a magical girl is akin to being like a firefighter or some other emergency response personnel. Do you know how long it has been since we've had a proper magical girl series that actually seemed to give a care about the genre that it was in? Okay, yes, the magical girl and the evil lieutenant from last season does exist, but that's a short anime. That doesn't count. And then also I will be cold and dead in the ground before I consider Magical Destroyers anything but a parody or mockery of the genre rather than a serious entry. Oh, I'm sorry, gushing over magical girls? Nah, that one leans far too more into Super Sentai territory than historically magical girl as a genre. And yes, I get it, it's building on the blocks that Sailor Moon built, but even Moon was just taking the best parts of Sentai and adapting them to great effect. I'm passionate about this genre, couldn't you tell? No. So, what I wanted was actual magical girls, being the actual protagonists and helping people from their respective world. Which, for the last 5 years, basically just amounts to a whole crap ton of Precure and virtually nothing else. Am I watching this show? Of course. I mean, I even read the manga a number of years back when it first came out, so I'm excited to see this series animated. A solid keep for me. Please watch it. Mecha Ude. What if Kill la Kill, but cyberpunk? What if Hiroyuki Sawano doing the soundtrack? What if Zettai Ryoiki? Yeah, I'm keeping this. You should watch it. Quickly though, let's take a break for a moment and give me a chance to collect myself before we continue to the next section, because I did want to give shoutouts to supporters of this channel over on Patreon. This video is not sponsored. I'd rather avoid sponsorships entirely if we can, and the more support that we get over there, the less sponsors that Glass Reflection will ever need at any given time. So an immense thank you, especially to patrons Omar Showman, Ross Emerson, Hector Montemayor, Aiden, Sidi Yamako, and Ryfen Bonaparte. We can't continue this without your support, so however much you are able to help, I am eternally grateful. Negative, positive, angler. Alright, so our protagonist gets told he only has 2 years left to live. Something wrong with his brain that's not really explained, just alluded to. He has flashes of the life he thinks he was supposed to lead, and he claims that it all went wrong when he just borrowed a small amount of money from someone, and then that debt just snowballed into basically him owing his entire life savings to people. We first meet him when he is attempting to hang himself in his apartment. So that's fun. While running from some loan sharks, he ends up falling into the river, gets picked up by a group of fishermen who are able to show him their wonderful way of life, and presumably the series will continue with our protagonist going on this healing journey with the help of these fishermen, showing him their hobby. Though I'm curious how that will work, with his impending demise looming ever closer. I don't feel like there was enough here to grab me personally, at least not enough to recommend it outright, but I am curious enough about it to want to give it a few more episodes, so we're gonna put this one on hold. Nina, the Starry Bride. A medieval-like society where a young orphan with exceptionally beautiful blue eyes is sold out by her orphan brethren to one of the country's princes. It turns out that one of the princesses of the land, who is also a priestess of some kind, has befallen a tragic end. Thankfully, she had been kept in seclusion all of her life, and the only ones who truly know what she looks like are very few in number. Not even the king and queen know what this princess looks like. All that the nobility know is that the princess had beautiful blue eyes. So the prince kidnaps our orphan girl with the intention of training her to take the place of the dead princess, as she was betrothed to a prince of a neighboring kingdom, and her death would be a massive diplomatic incident. So for the girl's part, she's not entirely excited about this life change, even though, she's gone from living off what she can steal for the last couple of years to now being a literal princess. Though to her, it just feels like she's moved from one cage to another. Hopefully she can learn about how to present herself properly and not die from being found out as an imposter. And really, I have a bunch of questions. I can ignore the convenience of her taking the place of a princess who just so happened to have never been seen by, anyone except for 3 people. But also, what is the goal of the plot here? I don't know. Is her role just to be married off? What kind of finale to the story can we expect? Will she be found out and banished? Will the prince here catch feelings for her and then arrange for them to be married despite the supposed family connections? No clue, but I'm interested to find out. So for the moment, we're going to put this one on hold. Orb on the movements of the earth. Set in 15th century Poland, I think, a young orphan has been raised by members of the church out of poverty and is considered a genius. He's heading off to university at only the age of 12. His caretakers from the church assume and pressure him into studying theology, as the church is the highest power in the land, and studying the texts of God is the most respected field because of this. But our protagonist is conflicted, because his eyes long for the beauty that exists at night within the stars that he thinks orbit the Earth. Because, of course, Earth is special. He thinks Earth is so special that God has placed it in the center of the universe and all things rotate around it. 15th century, please remember this. But our protagonist is eventually placed in the company of a recanted heretic, a man whose obsessive research has brought him to the brink of death and on the verge of being executed. This man posits his own research to our young protege, the idea that it's the Earth that moves and everything else stands still. But such thoughts are blasphemy, are they not? So Madhouse is the one animating this, and you got the director for Parasite the Maximum on board. A series that I can't stand, but I can appreciate for its quality. And so much of this show just screams slow burn. Greatness awaits. I could be wrong. This series could go in a billion different directions, and not all of them are good, but I am liking what I am seeing, so I'm looking forward to more. Keep. Puniru is a kawaii slime. Puniru is a slime made out of everyday safe-for-children materials, who somehow has gained a sentience, and no one questions this because it's a comedy, so why would they? Our protagonist made this slime girl one day while watching an instructional television show, and ever since then, she has never left his side, which is bad for him because now that he's older, he doesn't want to be constantly followed around by a seemingly narcissistic and naive slime who wants nothing more than to have her creator call her cute, making his life miserable in the process. I mean, the show has some good points, and in many ways, it is quite unique, but as with all comedy, it's up to your own subjective opinion on if you enjoy it or not. And for me, I'm in the not category. I'm not really up to seeing episode upon episode of our protagonist sometimes literally treading water as he tries to live his life and gain the attention of a girl that he likes while this slime keeps trying to, stalk him and cover him with her goo. I'm tossing this one. The do-over damsel conquers the dragon emperor. Okay, so, this show is hard to describe because honestly, we've seen this near exact series before. You know the show, the one with the noble girl that gets proposed to by some guy with higher standing than her. Time passes, he treats her horribly, or he cheats on her with someone else, and she eventually dies. At her death, she wishes that she somehow made different decisions and then gets reincarnated as a younger self and then ends up somehow getting betrothed to a mysterious prince or emperor from a nearby land and then has to convince said mysterious prince not to then go on a murder spree like he did in her previous timeline. Does this sound familiar to you? Because it's only been a year, but it's the same basic plot as Seventh Time Loop. Granted, our protagonist here did not loop 7 times, she's only looped once so far, but the gist of it is the same. Say nothing of the other similar shows that just in general involve a character looping back on their own timeline to stop a horrible fate from befalling them, irrespective of some foreign love interest. So do you know what I say to this show that is so eerily similar to all of those other shows? I say that I'm keeping it. Well, I watched all the other ones to completion, so there has to be something wrong with me. Plus, this one has some cute dragon that can turn invisible. So that's cool. Let's continue. The healer who was banished from his party is, in fact, the strongest. This is another one of those shows that I feel like its premise was decided by dartboard. Banished from his party is a healer. And I'm not even gonna throw a dart for is actually the strongest because let's be real, that's almost assumed with virtually every show of this type. So we got 2 protagonists. The main one who got banished for unknown reasons from a well-known party, and he holds a reputation for being absolutely useless because, apparently he only knows the one basic heal spell. He can't fill the normal healer role in a party, so you better not party with him. The basics, but this guy meets a spunky young girl whose life he once saved several years ago. And since that rescue, she has dedicated herself to training and becoming an adventurer so that she can join up with her hero and protect him like he protected her back in the day. He doesn't realize it's her. I'm sure that's going to be a comedic beat at some point. But as the two of them go on their adventure, our useless healer actually seems to be quite skilled. He can detect traps like a thief and defeat mid-level monsters with a single strike like a warrior. Is he actually as useless as they say? Survey says no! What will keep me going is not our protagonist and the mystery surrounding him at all, because that's not a mystery, let's be fair. No. Why I am holding on to this one, at least for a few more episodes, is because our main female lead is just such a pleasant bundle of energy that I am excited to see how her story with the protagonist unfolds. Will it be good? Who knows? But I'm willing to give it just a little bit more to find out. The most notorious talker runs the world's greatest clan. Wait, didn't we just talk about something like this? Like twice now, I almost feel like. This screams it's just another one of the weakest is actually the strongest because, hey, that's what a talker is, apparently. They're just a traditional bard who works as a support player in a party, but is otherwise useless on their own. But it's also very much like let this grieving soul retire on paper. The protagonist here is actually useful in a group and not a complete waste of space in an otherwise normal party of adventurers. Either way, it doesn't feel like it wants to add anything to the conversation, so I'm not going to add it to my watch list. Simple. The stories of girls who couldn't be magicians. So this show takes place at a magic school that also has a public school added on. We have a protagonist who, since a young age, has desperately wanted to become a magician, and she even came in first place on the mock exam in order to do so. But for whatever reason, she was still not accepted and got moved into the public school section instead. But wait! Strange things keep happening in and around the school, and even the magic students themselves seem befuddled. Then a state magician who looks like a little girl arrived to teach all of the standard students, including our protagonists, and she says she's going to teach them how to be magicians. Why? I don't know, but hey, I'm happy with the variety and uniqueness that the show is offering, so I'm willing to keep it and find out what's going on. Let's go. Trillion Game. Two men, both with extremely different personalities and skill sets, are set to take on the world. Their goal? To earn $1 trillion. How? I don't know. Neither do they. We have a guy who is the living embodiment of charisma. He can talk his way into or out of virtually everything. And also we have the most closeted nerd you will ever meet, who also can make computers eat out of his hand if only he pushed himself to make them do so. But together they will make a mighty team. I think? I hope. I honestly have no idea. At first I was thinking that I would just, pass on this. But it is a Madhouse show, and while perhaps they might do the thing where when a studio has multiple shows airing at the same time, one seems to get a little bit more of a priority over the other, and Orb does seem absolutely fantastic so far, so maybe this is the down show, or maybe they could both be amazing. I don't know. So we're gonna put this on hold for a while, and we'll see how it goes. I may drop it, but I may not. We'll see. TsumaSho. Now this is a reincarnation story that I can get behind. Goodbye, isekai. Hello, tragic family. Our protagonist met the love of his life 20 years ago. She was everything he wanted, and their family was perfect. They had a house, good jobs, they ended up having a daughter that they loved together. But 10 years back, his wonderful wife died tragically, leaving him and his young daughter alone for 10 years. But surprise! She got near instantly reincarnated, but didn't have her memories come back until she was about 10 years old. So now, she is back, and their family can finally heal. Except this is a little bit of an awkward situation, isn't it? Our protagonist is in like his 40s, and while he's super happy to have his wife back, she's in the body of a 10-year-old. And even she has made comments about how creepy this is and how suspicious he looks acting lovey-dovey towards her. Like, I told a friend of mine who will remain nameless because you know who you are. I told him that I was watching, all the shows for the season again, and when I mentioned that I was watching this particular show and I liked it, I referred to it by its Japanese short-form title of TsumaSho. And his first comment to me was, tell me what the English title is. In a tone that implied he already knew, but he wanted me to say it out loud, followed by the fact that I was keeping it. And that is when I learned that this show's English title is My Wife Will Become an Elementary School Student. And yes, it sounds terrible, and I wish whoever came up with that English title went back to the drawing board for a bit. But still, that aspect is what I am interested in. Oddly. Obviously, the reincarnated wife wants to and is going to try to support her old family because, without her, they kind of just did not treat themselves well and lived in a funk for like a decade. But also, she can't just fit herself back into the place where she used to be. Her husband could and probably should move on to another relationship. Say nothing of the fact that, as a 10-year-old now, she has a whole new life ahead of her. Like, what about the life of the little girl who existed before her memories returned? There are so many interesting avenues for this plot to go that, man, I'm just really curious about it. With so many other shows that I feel like I can predict its entire run on just the first episode, something unique like this that has so many possibilities to it is a breath of fresh air. So yeah, I'm keeping this one, for sure. Tying the knot with an Amagami sister. Oh look, a harem series with the protagonist who is now living in the same house as some beautiful girls while he attempts to study and get into Tokyo U. Where have I heard that before? Don't answer that question, it was rhetorical and it's aged me like decades. Actually, it was Kyoto U, not Tokyo U. I got so caught up in the whole Love Hina reference that I just completely whiffed on that. So, okay, moving on. I will say that unlike the traditional harem show, it wasn't as grossly in my face about it than, what I was expecting. It does have the, oh whoops, our protagonist just so happened to see our female characters in their underwear. What a strange coincidence that always seems to happen in these shows. Oh whoops, in the span of a single day, coincidence has struck 3 times over, and our protagonist has found himself either on top of or beneath one of these female characters at the exact moment that another one of the characters comes in and catches him in the act. What an unfortunate situation. What a coinky-dink. That sort of thing just exhausts me so much and I hate it. But at least I will say that here, these just feel like they're token scenes. It feels like the show is doing it just because that is what is expected of the genre and not because the show and the narrative itself is actually enthused about those scenes. So there is that. Doesn't stop me from tossing it though. Yakuza Fiancé. Oh man, For a show that makes me feel like I don't have some kind of innate knowledge of like Japanese Yakuza and the inner workings therein, I'm still finding myself enjoying this. So the gist of the series revolves around our two leads, both of which are in high school, both the grandchildren of a top Yakuza boss in the Kanto and Kansai regions respectively. They get thrown together in an attempt to settle some kind of cold war between the two groups, and at first, our female lead, Yoshino, is just trying to make the best of it. Like, the guys in Kanto have been welcoming to her, her possible fiancé has been nice, he's popular at school, and things are fine, yeah? Except actually, this guy is also a Yakuza, despite her being assured that he wasn't. He's got a nasty personality that he keeps hidden for appearances, and straight up tells her that he got bored of her almost instantly, and she should sell her body for cash or something before heading home, then telling her family how much of an ass he is, and hopefully starting a clan war that he would actually enjoy. Of course, she decides not to take any of that lying down and starts to throw shit right back at him in an attempt to make his life miserable. Turns out he gets off on that and instead falls madly in love with her. You know, for real this time. So now that I'm talking about that out loud, I don't actually know if I like it. Like, I enjoyed watching it, but I'm not sure why or if that enjoyment will continue. So to play it safe, we're going to put this one on hold and we'll go from there. You are Miss Servant. Okay, I like it. We got a pair of characters. One very average adolescent boy who, for reasons we will probably never discuss, is able to live on his own perfectly fine in a house by himself. And one day, a woman wearing a maid outfit arrives and asks him to hire her. Turns out, despite the outfit, she is not a maid, but is in fact an assassin with a speciality in knives and knife throwing. Obviously, our male lead here has no such need for such a scary individual and politely says that he can't hire her. And I mean, come on, with what money is he going to hire her? I still don't get how he can live in that house by himself, let alone hire staff. Anyways, she accidentally dropped a bell, which he attempts to return to her, and in doing so almost gets isekai'd by Truck-kun into some other show. But our assassin maid saves him, and in return then, because, you know, she saved his life, he decides to hire her. For what? Who knows? I mean, it's made clear in the very next scene that she doesn't know the first thing about housework, and in general, it's unclear what benefit having her around would have to him, besides, I don't know, maybe some weird fantasy of living by himself with a busty maid? I can't tell you why I like it, but I have some theories. My copy of Maharomatic is visible on the shelf behind me, isn't it? The characters here are cute. I like how they interact. There is a level of world building that's just missing for me to be truly sold with it. So in the hope that the next few episodes will fix all that, I'm putting it on hold and we'll see how it goes. But that's it for our show today. With any luck, you now have a greater amount of knowledge about what is airing this season and what you yourself will want to watch, whether you follow my recommendations or not. If possible, I'm going to try and find a way to link in the description the places where you can watch all of these shows for legal streaming, but if that fails, you know, just Google the show's name and add the word streaming. Shouldn't be too difficult for you. Subscribe if you haven't, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, whether that is later in this month or even next month or whenever it is, you know, just watch more anime and stay frosty.